Hi, my name is Keith Stone. I am the optimistic quadriplegic, and today I want to wrap up what happened during my 9-day stay at McLaren Northern Hospital in Petoskey. Um, One of the things I think if you could boil the Bible down to one lesson, I think it is love one another. And that seems like a simple thing, but it's such a big thing. What would happen to this world if there was more love? It'd be a lot better place. And the love that was demonstrated to myself, and more importantly, my family that needed it more during this time of crisis, was overwhelming. All the people that um, either came up to visit, went out of their way to come up to visit. You know, this is 3.5 hours away from our home, remember. Or people that were on vacation up north and they made the detour over to come and see. And, you know, it wasn't anything they could do for me, but to comfort Sarah and my kids and everything like that, that was a big deal. And you'll never know how much that meant to me until someday, God forbid, you're in that position and you need that help. So I would say, if you're able, if somebody's down, um, you know, reach out a hand and help them. It means a lot. Um, it certainly weren't the only people that helped me, but I just wanted to point out just a couple. Sarah's sisters, Carmela and Gloria, they were there the whole time. And yeah, they're sisters, so maybe it's more of their duty, but they went above and beyond. They're both nurses, so what was great about that was people would throw around medical terms, and we would just look in their direction, and they would tell us what that really means. My nephew Brandon was big, and he set up an internet tool called Caring Bridge, which I had never heard of, but apparently people have. And Caring Bridge is similar, like maybe Facebook. It's a social media site where when somebody, I guess mostly it would be when somebody is at a medical condition, but sometimes where you want to get the message out to lots of people without having to send out 100 texts or send out field 100 phone calls or whatever. Sarah was able to put daily updates or hourly updates on Caring Bridge, and people could go there and knew exactly what my status was, and they could reply and there's more words of encouragement there, which we appreciated. We used that forever. I mean, not just at the hospital. I went to the rehab hospital, when we came home, until I was able to kind of like type out texts and stuff to interested parties myself, or until really, you know, there wasn't any leaps and bounds or changes in my, you know, in how I was feeling or anything like that. Another big one that Sarah had mentioned while in one of her videos was a fellow teacher in Grand Blanc, Vicki Weiss. She had a home right there in Petoskey, a summer home, and she drove out of her way about 2 hours just to give Sarah the keys and the directions so that my family would have a place to stay, rather than just staying at a motel. You know, I mean, that was incredible and so appreciated. But for her to do that, that was really nice. Just what I think happened to me is everybody's looking for their purpose in life. And what I took right away was that God has found my purpose in life. My purpose in life is to tell you my story, to tell you that God exists, and what a belief in God, what a difference it made in my life, and how it's going to continue to do that way. I think that's why he kept me alive. He wanted me to spread the word. And so that's part of the thing of what I'm doing. As far as what we did at the hospital, they had a cardiac chair there. So I'm laying on my back, and one of the things that we have to learn whether I can do or not is, can I sit up, or will my blood pressure support me sitting up? And so they would transfer me into a cardiac chair, and I would, like an arm, I could move all around the room. So if you looked at that slideshow of pictures and saw that window, the view I had out that window, I could sit in that chair and I could see that view. We did some work with nurses on just stretching my arms, and we would try to sit on the edge of my bed, which was very difficult. I had like no core strength at all, so they would have to hold me. But just getting my feet hanging over the bed and on the floor, I was thankful for that. Now, one of the more emotional things was, I told you that I was riding with Greg Gilorowski in the cart, and we all call him Gil, so that's what I'm going to call him forward here, is that he was pretty shook up when I was in the emergency room, so I didn't get a big chance to talk to him. And so we had been talking, through text messaging, and he came up on that Friday that I was in the hospital, and everybody left the room, and we were able just to talk. I sat in that chair, and he sat in a regular chair, and we kind of just told each other's story. He told me what he remembered. I told him what I had been through, and I don't mean to embarrass you, Gil, but we sat there and cried. And it was a traumatic experience. I think Gil carried a lot of guilt from what happened, and he had no reason to. But when he walked into my room, shoulders were slumped. He had a tear in his eye already, and he felt like he was responsible for my accident. But by the time we got done talking, I'd already adopted the fact that I was going to be optimistic and I was going to get it better. So I told him that, passed that information on to him. We probably talked for an hour and a half or so, and I think he felt a lot better by the time we got done. As a matter of fact, he had me do a visual recording, so that he could send it to the rest of the Griswolds. I remember that's my name of the group that we were golfing with. And so that made them feel all better. And I think by the time he left, Gil felt a lot better about the whole situation. And I am, in the future, we'll have another sit down with him, and we will talk to him about his experiences and how he's feeling now and all that. Next up was, we knew I was leaving soon, but didn't know exactly when. But I had to go somewhere. I had to find a rehab hospital. So they have a liaison that works for the Petoskey Hospital, and that's their job, is to find people their next stop. And she hadn't really consulted with us, but she was looking in Detroit and Flint and everything like that. And my two sisters, who are from the west side of the state in Kalamazoo, had heard of Mary Free Bed in Grand Rapids. And so they asked us, well, what about Mary Free Bed? And the liaison, her face lit up, and she said, that would be ideal. I just didn't think you'd be interested in being that far from home. But she said, that's kind of like a magnet school for rehabilitation hospitals. And there's no guarantee we can get you in there. It's difficult to get in. They have to accept your case. But she was excited to work on that because that's where she would prefer I went. So she did her job. She went to work, contacted the right people, and within a day or two they said, "Yep, they have a bed for you. You can get there. You can be there on Tuesday." And this probably all happened on, I don't know, Friday, Saturday, something like that. So the bad news is I didn't have anybody to release me yet because Dr. Colin was still in Florida. And he was due back Tuesday morning. But we were waiting around, and the ambulance was there. They were going to take me by ambulance down there, but no Dr. Colin, no Dr. Colin. And he finally came in and signed off on my release. And if you look through that slideshow, that last picture is that Tuesday morning when I was getting ready to leave. So now I have a list of thank yous to all the nursing staff. Sarah had talked about Peg in ER, how I remember she talked to me too when I was in ER, and she brought warm blankets. I don't know if Sarah mentioned that, but when Sarah got there, she brought warm blankets out to them while they're in the waiting room. And she, even though she worked in ER, she came up on Tuesday before I left, and she said goodbye to me. And that's, she didn't have to do that. I'm not even sure if she was on shift, but she did that, and she is one of the sweetest people I ever met. And so I thank Peg. I'm not sure if she's still there or not. I don't know. Also, probably I shouldn't have any favorites, but I do. My nurse, I had a nurse, her name was Tara, and she was a traveling nurse, and she was smart. So she spent summers in Michigan and spent winters in Las Vegas and in Hawaii. So we knew she knew her nursing stuff, and she was smart enough to get out of the weather. But she was a smartass, and I was a smartass, so that was great. Right off the bat, here I am in a collar, paralyzed for maybe the rest of my life, but we laughed, we enjoyed each other's company. So I thank Tara for that. I think she's even still one of Sarah's Facebook friends. There was a nurse named Michelle who was very soft-spoken, but she took the time to explain everything she did to Sarah so that maybe she would need to know how to do that at home, or just so that we would be comfortable in what was going on there. And so I especially want to thank Michelle. But there's a whole list of other nurses. Sarah, Vicky, Jamie, Lisa, Bobby, Katie, Sharon, and Ashley. I don't know if they're still there, but they were instrumental to my recovery. For me to go from where I was when I walked in there, was stretchered in there, to when I was stretchered out of there, was one of the miracles along the way. And there was plenty of miracles. Now Carmela, Sarah's sister, who I mentioned was a nurse. She obviously can recognize a good nursing staff, and she could be very critical, but she had high praise for that nursing staff. So I couldn't say anything more than that. Anything I thought was nothing, but for Carmela to say that was huge. So Tuesday morning, moved on to Mary Free Bed, and that will be the start of our next series. And I appreciate you watching these videos.